Ah, so Question Sunday. My colleagues, some of them have been doing this for years, and I'm like, you mean arrive and not be totally prepared for what might come at me? I don't think so. And then Judy said, don't you have something you could offer for the auction this year? You know, like a sermon. I did offer a sermon one year at the offering, and the request from the one who purchased said, start every sentence with a different letter of the alphabet from A to Z. So you can see my reservation. But, you know, my colleagues also said, oh, it's so much fun. Do it. You'll love it. All right, so do I have all of the questions? I have they're all this size. Some are blue. Oh, wait a minute, right here? There we go. All right. Yes, go get the Zoom ones because we want to include people on Zoom. So obviously, I won't probably be able to get to all of these, but I'll do what I can. Globally, has UU membership increased or declined? So I believe when I started on the path to ministry 17 years ago, we were at 1,100 globally. And I believe the latest numbers was 1,087. So really, after all that time, it's not too bad. We haven't lost many of our congregations. Pardon? It was 1,100 Unitarian Universalist congregations around the world 17 years ago. Just 2 weeks ago, I think I read that we have 1,087 congregations worldwide. So that's just losing not quite 15, 13. What is the difference between Unitarianism and Universalism? Ay. Long-time members here know what that is. So, yeah, we have a history, right? We have a long history. Many people don't know this. They think it's New Age, but it's not. So, Unitarianism, actually at 325 at the Nicene Gathering, the council, people were arguing, and there was a gathering, and they said, all right, you all are going to have to vote. Either Jesus was fully human or Jesus was divine like God. So the priests took a vote, male priests, of course, at that time, took a vote in 325 and said, look, we believe that Jesus was divine like God. That our ancestors were the ones that said, look, Jesus was fully human with a piece of the divine like all of us are. But we don't believe that the Father, the Son, Holy Ghost kind of thing. So look at how long ago that was Unitarianism, where it came out that we believe in one God, not Father, Son, Holy Ghost. Universalism came about, so this was all overseas, right? Not here yet. Not until the 1700s did both of these denominations arrive. That was Unitarianism, which was a bad word, by the way. If you were called Unitarian, that was a slang. That was a bad thing until later on, many of our ancestors said, you know what? I'm going to claim it. I'm a Unitarian. I believe in one God. That was early. Universalists started having troubles with the idea, in Catholicism especially, that all souls will go to heaven, but only after they're baptized, right? So, and some souls will go to heaven, they'll be chosen by God, and some souls won't. And so the Universalist people started saying, you know what? That's a piece of BS. We believe in a loving God, that no God would intend for someone's soul to perish. So that's where universalism, universal salvation, that's where that came. In 1961, the Unitarians and the Universalists came together. Can you believe this? You know how hard it is in our congregations to get work done, to vote and make change? These two congregations came together. Unitarians had strong academia, from the east coast of the United States here, planted, very stoic. Universalists, a lot of them were out preaching, singing, feeling the Spirit. The Universalists had an excellent way of organizing. So the Unitarians had this academia, Universalists later did too, but they didn't have a governance, a structure for congregations to vote, whereas Universalists did. They said they had members who would come together and vote from their congregations to make change. So the two came together, and it's a beautiful way. We have congregational polity because of the Unitarian Universalists that came together. That was a really long answer, but some of the questions to newcomers is, why do you guys have a really long name? Right? Well, in 1961, they said, all right, the Universalists, and I did meet in Muncie, Indiana, many years ago when I was an intern at a congregation, old Universalist congregation. A man there was sitting out in the lobby when I walked out one day, and he goes, I don't care what they say. This is still a Universalist place. So the only reason why Unitarians come first and Universalists is because alphabetical order. Unitarian, Universalist. Do you have to have a certain political affiliation to be a UU? No, you do not. How does that feel for me to say that? No, you do not. Throughout time, and at least in my time in the congregations, there have been members and friends who have walked up and said, I'm a Republican, but not that kind of Republican. The Republican like my father was. So to answer your question, no, that's your business. Granted, we will advocate for values that tend to fall within political realms. We know that. How has the diversity, religious, social, racially, and economically changed in recent years in Unitarian Universalism? Ooh, that's big. So Christianity, Judaism, Jesus was Jewish. A lot of the teachings of Jesus in our early days, very powerful, still powerful. I consider him a prophet and a lovely, excellent, admirable way to be. His work for social justice at a time of oppression in Rome is admirable and ought to be something that I follow. However, when the late 50s and early 60s hit, and it was anti-authoritarianism, screw the man. Many of you will remember, maybe many of you were protesting the war, etc. So there was a huge rise of anti-religion. And that's where a lot of the humanism and the atheists and agnostics really raised their voices in our congregations. In fact, one member of a congregation when I first came said, so when do we get to stand up and argue in our services like we used to do? That has changed. There was pushback against sacred language. We're not talking about Christianity. We're not. And then, about 15 years ago, they said, this is BS. That's my favorite. This is BS. In the Unitarian, they said, why can't we reclaim beautiful, valuable, meaningful words? Why does the word spirit have to be usurped by fundamentalists? We know what spirit is. It's breath. It's breath. It's the original meaning is wind. Why can't we say we're filled with breath? We're filled with spirit. We're filled with the interest in humanity. So now UUism has started reclaiming some of those early words. That's why you may see sacred spaces, holiness. Even the word worship. When I came here, I understand the pushback against worship because many of us were raised sometimes in not so supportive environments. But when you go back, again, to look at the meaning of worship, it means to talk about that which has meaning, which is important, not just worship of God. Where besides Florida have you lived, and for long? How long at each location? So Indianapolis. My adult years have spent in Indianapolis. I did spend a couple of years in Fort Lauderdale teaching at St. Mark's Episcopal School. I was an art teacher, and I'll tell you what, it prompted me on the path toward Unitarian Universalist ministry. I was a member of the Fort Lauderdale Unitarian Universalist congregation. The first congregation I joined was Bloomington, Indiana, when my son was 4. So when I went to Fort Lauderdale to teach every week, it was a private school, every week we had to put on these red jackets and had to attend Mass 1 hour before service. And so every Wednesday, the children had to march up to the altar, kneel down, and take communion. And I went to the headmaster and I said, you know what? I'm a Unitarian Universalist. This isn't working for me. And so the headmaster said, well, then you can do this, but you still have to kneel. And I said, but I'm also a survivor of child abuse. This is not working for me. And he said, well, you just need to get over it because that's what we do here. I went straight to a therapist. And the therapist said, all this you're telling me, very liberal, very justice-oriented, not ascribing to the norm. Have you ever thought about being a minister? I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. How can I help people in their lives? And I did use those very words. He said, it's just something for you to explore. And then I began talking to the UU minister, Gail, down in Fort Lauderdale. I talked to the minister in Bloomington. Barbara Carlson, the first female minister I ever saw. I was raised Methodist, always men, always a male pronoun for God, always the men making decisions. And I'm not anti-men, but boy, feminist through and through. Give me a chance to speak at the pulpit. When Barbara Carlson floated to the front of the sanctuary in Bloomington, Indiana, I thought I was going to faint. Methodist growing up was fairly conservative, and it was always a man and very long prayers. I promise not to make long prayers. I have never played a musical instrument. I tried the Native American flute. I tried playing for the congregation in front of them one time. Ooh, it was bad. It was really bad. I'll save you from that. My mother is a musician, violin, bass, guitar, piano, organ, phenomenal. My sister followed in her footsteps, so it's very hard to go home and not be able to participate. They do allow me to sing, but I see them looking at each other and kind of, we love her, but she's got a really bad voice. Why haven't we started a UU University football team? Could be the fighting question marks. I love it. Can someone pledge to UUC without being a member? Yes, we have a directory for friends, for pledging friends and members. You do not have to be a member. That decision to become a member is yours. We signed the book to become a member these days, and it means that you also, that congregational polity comes up. When it's time to make a decision about the next minister that you should choose, or a decision about what happens on campus, the congregation comes together and votes. I don't make that decision. Your board doesn't make that decision. You all vote for what happens here. So that's why you might be interested in signing the book. Otherwise, of course, pledging friends. You are part of the community. What is the best way to become involved in the UUC community? So we want you to come on Sunday morning. That would be lovely. But you know what? If you're like, I work, that's my coffee time, that's my Church of the New York Times time, that's good. Maybe you'll come to meditation on Tuesday night. Maybe you join the choir. Maybe you're participating in the garden. The UUC community is not just who is here or on Zoom on a Sunday morning. I still advocate for that. We are a community of active individuals. What legacy do you wish to leave? I could ask you the same, right? Probably the same legacy that you want. To know that I made a difference in somebody's life. That's it. To know that I made a difference. It'd be lovely if when I'm gone, somebody says, oh, I remember that minister who used to say that I'm loved just as I am. I don't have to change to be somebody else to be loved. That would be lovely, but just want to help. After attending a service here at UUC about 15 years ago, my son-in-law said, I'm confused. Exactly what do UUs believe? Son-in-law is a devout Southern Baptist. So we're not for everybody. And my supervisor in Muncie, Indiana, told me one time, we will always be a small denomination. Because not everybody is comfortable with eagerness to be on a journey of research and questions and finding something and then having 5 more questions and then being okay with not knowing everything. So there was a member of the congregation in Savannah who came to me one time and said, you know what, my daughter is coming on Christmas Eve. I want her to come. She was raised UU. I want her to come here with me on Christmas Eve, but she doesn't want to. She wants to go Catholic Mass. And she said, I asked her why, and she said, Mom, I don't want to figure it out. I want somebody to tell me what I need to do. Our role is to encourage people on a journey that's spiritual. It's lovely if they join us in our UU spaces, but doesn't mean we're for everybody. And I know that many of you have, as do I, members of our own family who are incredibly on the opposite side of what UU is, right? We take care of ourselves. We speak in a way that's compassionate. And that maybe mean that we don't talk, I hate to say this, we don't talk to them as often as we used to, because it's very hard when we hear people talk about exclusion and you know what I'm saying, right? Let's see. Do Unitarians have a consensus of what happens after death? Does the human spirit live on after the death of the body? What do you think? It's individual, right? Do Unitarians have a consensus? No, other than to say, from my history, other than to say, I don't know, I haven't died. I'm not sure what happens after death. My mother asked me one time, do you believe in heaven? And I said, Mom, I said that to her. I haven't died. I don't know what happens. I have hope. I have hope that something happens that we live on, but I don't know. And my mother is a kind, soft-spoken woman, but she slammed her hand on the table and said, I have to believe that I will see my mother again. No, we don't have a consensus. We have our own individual views, and again, that's the beauty of pluralism. How is UU marketing itself to younger people? Does UU Clearwater have an endowment? We do have an endowment. It is separate, but it's still every year. That endowment, so there's that legacy. Boy, wouldn't it be lovely if when I passed that there was money sitting there that would help an organization even after I'm gone? Yes, we have an endowment. Do we have some of the people who are on the board of the endowment in here? Would you raise your hand? So if there are further questions? Yes. All right. These are the people on the endowment. So whoever asked that question, if you have more questions. UU Clearwater marketing itself to younger people. This is a hard one. I was just talking to Lori Thorne. You all invested in a lead teacher, a lifelong learning, a person who would promote activities for our families as well as for adults. But I was talking to Lori just this week, And she said, the hard part is our school schedule practices on Sunday morning. So one of the challenges with getting kids here on a Sunday morning is they've got ball practice, or they're doing something that the schools have organized. It's a hard one, getting our children. The thing is that we make space and provide activities. It would be lovely if and when, and they do. When I first came, 15 children showed up. One Sunday there were 3, another Sunday there were 22, another Sunday there was no one. So it's like an accordion. We prepare for the sound, but doesn't mean it's always going to come out. What is the biggest issue facing Clearwater? It's not just the biggest issue facing Clearwater. It's all of our UU congregations. Can we be loving and welcoming? Can we take that UU of transformation and enable ourselves to be humble? I think condescension, and I don't hear it as much anymore, but I did years ago, condescension about, I know my belief is true and yours isn't. I love you, but you're on the path and you're not there yet. That was a thing. That is a challenge for all of our Unitarian Universalist congregations. May we remain humble. When somebody says, this hurt my feelings, instead of being defensive, we need to work. My work is to say, tell me. There was a woman who said, what you said from the pulpit is racist. And my hands went, what? And then I went, tell me what I said. And she said, when you say our members of the persons of color community are begging for help, that makes it sound like it's us, and you're forgetting that white people are part of the challenge. Whatever it was, I just noticed that my hands went up like this, and then I went, tell me more. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I think you have a hard time saying, I'm sorry, and I'm being honest here. I love you. I love you, but all of us can work on having humility and saying, I don't know everything, and certainly what I said to this person, I'm working, I'm trying. Tell me how I can get better. We're still good friends. That person's still a member of a congregation, and we learned a lot. Does life have a purpose? If so, what? Yes. To build bridges, to connect with each other, to help each other. I believe that's why we're here. Nothing more than to help each other, to build bridges of understanding, to create communities of love and support. What do you think? Somebody, I'm going to turn it on you. What is the meaning? Does life have a purpose? Connection. I agree. Yes? To love ourselves so that we can love others, including complete strangers. That we can be someone who brings joy to others. To grow our character, to become a better person. That, boy, is that a UU. More morality has been a thread throughout our whole history. To be a better person. Bruce, what? Oh, I'm sorry, I can't. Not unless we choose. We choose. We choose to have a purpose. Each person chooses to have a purpose. Right, or chooses not necessarily to have a purpose, okay? Yes? Eliseo found love here, and his goal is to take that love to help others find a place of hope and healing. Would you agree? And to grow that same kind of love. Who is a you that you admire? Margaret Fuller, a journalist, a female journalist, the first one. What I love about her was more than she was just an occupation, a journalist, but she went overseas, fell in love with a man, became pregnant before married, was ostracized, but was her own person, a transcendentalist, editor of The Dial, which was the transcendentalist newspaper. I love Margaret Fuller. I think Christopher Reeves was pretty awesome, who maintained his advocacy for stem cell research. Susan B. Anthony goes without saying. Let's see. What is the best way to become involved? Oh, did we do this in the UU community? Not just service tasks, but really connecting with others and developing friendships. That's beautiful. I don't know, longtime members, covenant groups. Our people who do the covenant groups, who organize those, would you raise your hand? This is a wonderful way, right here and right here. This is a wonderful way to get to know people. They meet once a month to answer various questions. Covenant group, the meditation group, I can't say that enough. The yoga that happens here on Saturday mornings at 10 o'clock. Meditation at 6 on Tuesdays. On Friday is a Zoom gathering, potpourri. Social justice. Wow, absolutely. Well, they said not just tasks, but I'll tell you what, social justice, you have fun while you're doing those tasks. Very much social justice. Let's see. Studies suggest all organized religions are seeing declining interest and enrollment, particularly in the young. How can we, that have so much to offer in terms of hope, do turn the tide? Yeah, so it's true. Pew Research Center says we're all declining. Got to tell you, though, in comparison to other traditional Protestant and Catholic, Unitarian Universalist is holding its own. Not growing exponentially, but not losing like, the Methodists had a split again. We have already covered this territory. We believe in dignity, and we believe in same-sex marriage. We've done that already. Methodists, 3 years ago, split because of their arguing over whether same-sex couples should be married. Women in the pulpit. Just this past week, I spoke to a woman who is a nun at the local Catholic church. She said when the Episcopals allowed a woman to speak from the pulpit, she cried. And she said, I wept because my faith tradition will likely never allow me to speak from the pulpit. We take this for granted, our liberal leanings, our inclusiveness. We take it for granted, don't we? We forget. I was at a protest in Indianapolis wearing a stole one time, and a young girl was over here, and she was staring at me, and I tried to ignore her, waving my sign, and then I said, hi, I'm Reverend Amy. Who are you? She said, my name is Linda. And she goes, I'm sorry, but, are you a minister? And I said, yes. And she goes, I didn't think women could be ministers. The same response of that 12-year-old girl was what I had at 26 years old. We take it for granted at how far our denomination has come. We don't expect people to abide by a creed. We do ask people to recognize the value of transformation, of pluralism, of equity. Oh, help me here. Love at the center, justice, pluralism. What am I missing? Transformation of ourselves, hoping that the world begins to transform because we've transformed ourselves. Generosity of spirit, and of course, to help sustain our communities. Monetary. Okay. Do I have any more? All right. I think I've covered almost. Maybe there's a yellow one in here. How many times have you been arrested? One time, and it was Washington, D.C., during the Obama reign, and my favorite minister, and yet there was a call out to clergy of all faiths. There were imams there were priests there were UU ministers, there were Episcopals. We were all called to come stand in front of the gates of the White House in requesting and demanding immigration reform. Can you believe that? So long ago. This is the thing. The city knew we were coming. And come on, we're peaceful people. But on that day, there was so much yelling. There were tanks. Washington, D.C. had 2 tanks on each side of us as we were protesting. And the thing is, we got arrested because we didn't keep walking. Now you have to keep walking in front of the White House gates. You can't stop. And so we were arrested, took to a nasty jail, paid $50, and it was taken off of my record. But it was not a fun experience, and I was a lucky one, right? So yeah, one time. I don't know. Let me see. Let me look around here at all of these baby boomers. I could ask the same thing, couldn't I? How is UU ministry different than what you thought it would be? I wasn't going to be a UU minister. I was going to work in a social justice or community setting. I'm a former artist. I wanted to do stuff with kids, But I fell in love with people when I did my internship. It is lovely. It's the best profession ever. People allow you to come into their lives, to hear their stories, to watch transformation happen. I did not realize how beautiful love could be, love for other people, until UU ministry. The best profession I have ever had. And when people say old dogs can't learn new tricks, that's not true. That is not true. I have seen amazing transformation. One member of a board, we knew that somebody needed some help with, this was a very small group, with electricity. And the president of the board said, we can't just be giving out money. We don't have all this money to give. And I said, this person can't pledge because this person is impoverished. And I'm aware I didn't have a discretionary fund, and I'm aware that she needs help with her electricity. And the president of the board said, all right, this one time, but she has to pay it back. So we helped her with her electricity. 1 year later, the board president said, hey, did she ever pay that back? And I said, no. And she said, you know what? We're not doing that anymore. If somebody needs help, our role is to help them. Like, thank you. I know it sounds cruel, right? But when you're looking at finances, I can understand why she would be that way. And yet a year later, she changed her stripes. Thank goodness. Thank goodness for our beloved tradition and all of the diversity. Thank you for asking me these questions. Okay, that wasn't so bad. Although I'm sure people come up and say, you didn't do mine. I would be happy to answer any questions over in the social hall. Thank you so much for bearing with me this morning.